Moody officials tell us nothing like this has ever happened here before. And now, as a group of interim investigators begins the search for how and why, Moody officials are crossing their fingers that the coming days will bring answers. 6 children ranging in age from 1 to 10 years old were not only in the house when it happened, they were in the very room when it took place. A neighbor heard gunshots, came outside in time to find the kids running away from the house, covered in blood. If there were a robbery here, this tape would prove invaluable to police. Oftentimes, clerks are too shaken up after a robbery to give a complete and accurate description of suspects. And when clerks are murdered during holdups, these surveillance tapes are often the only witnesses. Tornado that ripped through the county also proved devastating for some local farmers. Take a look at this cotton picker. It was sitting about 20 feet away over there. The winds were so strong they picked it up, hurled it through the air. It landed here on its side. Most of the glass shattered out of the front of it. But the damage also extends to the fields. Some local farmers say parts of their cotton and soybean crops were destroyed. But in the end, county commissioners weren't satisfied with the answers supplied by Bruce or her attorney, and they voted unanimously to suspend her from office, a move that her attorney says violates the law. Investigators say they have no reason to suspect that other Quitman officers might be involved in this case. The GBI's investigation is continuing. A bond hearing has been set for Friday for Brown, and in the meantime, there's no word as to whether other arrests are expected. Greg Lloyd, News Center 10, Quitman.
By the time we were 5 minutes into the session, we would be on the floor sitting, and I would be partially undressed, and we would be caressing each other.
For their protection, Diane and Paula are in disguise and not using their real names. But they're coming forward because they say they no longer can remain silent about what happened to them in the hands of their former therapist, John A. McLeod. He was a licensed clinical social worker practicing as a mental health counselor at this Northeast Valdosta office. And it's here that both Paula and Diane say that within a short period of time, he gained their trust and then took advantage of them sexually. But both claim they were too weak to realize what was happening to them.
I had mixed emotions. While I thought it was wrong, he assured me that it was okay and that this sort of thing happens with people.
Once we started having the physical relationship, and we did not have intercourse, but there was very little else that we did not do on his office floor.
Diane only saw him as a client for a little more than 3 months back in 1994, but Paula says her relationship was more intense. Paula began therapy with him in the early 80s. She says it wasn't until 1990 that McLeod began to touch her sexually, but she says her visits continued until last year.
You know, a lot of people would probably criticize you for that.
That's okay.
That you went for repeated visits.
If they knew, if they walked in my shoes, they would know what this is like. You're brainwashed.
Though they're speaking out, both women say they're still afraid for their lives. But they say they wanted to do it for other women who they say have gone through the same thing with McLeod, but won't stand up for themselves.
And he's telling everybody that this is not his fault and that we pursued him, which is immaterial because he broke the law. The minute he touched any of us or tampered with our minds, he broke the law.
Greg Lloyd, News Center 10, Valdosta.
So initial thoughts were we didn't know where this round came from, but we had an individual down, and we wanted safe, secure the area for any possibilities.
But as Moody officials soon learned, it was fire from one of their own F-16 planes that had struck 40-year-old John Gullick, a civilian base employee. Gullick was riding as a passenger Thursday afternoon along this dirt road on the base, when suddenly, as he made routine environmental compliance checks, a piece of 20mm F-16 cannon round shattered the windshield and struck him in the torso. The Grand Bay bombing range, where members of the 68th Fighter Squad were strafing, is about 2 miles from where the bullet struck Gullick. And so far, Moody officials say they don't have any idea how it happened.
We are looking into all the possibilities of what could have caused it, and I wouldn't even attempt to speculate.
Officials aren't releasing the names of the pilots and say right now they don't know which plane the stray round came from, but until they find out what went wrong, they're taking steps to make sure it doesn't happen again.
We discontinue any kind of strafing on Grand Bay Range. We do not do it. We don't allow any other units to be doing it until we figure out exactly what happened out there.
Moody officials tell us nothing like this has ever happened here before. And now, as a group of interim investigators begins the search for how and why, Moody officials are crossing their fingers that the coming days will bring answers. At Moody Air Force Base, Greg Lloyd, News Center 10, Valdosta. Lottie Bruce held fast to the story she's told since the investigation began, that she has no idea how nearly $250,000 in property and timber taxes vanished from her office.
You didn't bring those records that's missing over here.
She presented years' worth of tax records, but none contained missing documents to trail the money in question.
It appears that someone either stole this money. I don't know who did that or how they did that.
The crowd that filled commission chambers and spilled outside waited nearly 35 minutes for a decision as the board held executive session. But in the end, county commissioners weren't satisfied with the answers supplied by Bruce or her attorney, and they voted unanimously to suspend her from office, a move that her attorney says violates the law.
She met her legal obligations, and once she's met her legal obligations, the Board of Commissioners did not have the authority to suspend her.
They have took this and they've made it a personal issue. My mother's never done anything in that office but what she thought was right.
But commissioners say under the circumstances, temporary suspension was their only option.
The accountability she gave us, that didn't answer our question where the missing $246,000+ are.
And with no new answers, both county leaders and taxpayers are still left speculating on what happened to the money. Greg Lloyd, News Center 10, Homerville. If you travel down Melrose Drive in Valdosta, you just might think you've taken a wrong turn and arrived at the North Pole. That is, at least when you pass the Stevenson lawn.
I wanted something different. I started out with just one deer and maybe a raccoon or something like that the first year with a Christmas tree, and every year I add more to it.
Vernon and Grace Stevenson used their taxidermy talents to show off their thriving Christmas spirit. It's become an annual tradition for them, as well as for the rest of South Georgia. It's not uncommon for cars to line up out front of their house or for passersby to walk up on their lawn up until midnight.
It looks like they're going to get up and start moving. They don't look like they're fake either.
That's a big thing for seeing deer stuffed out here and Santa Claus behind it.
We stay up late every night so that we can make sure everybody can come by and see it.
Now, this display not only attracts people from all over Southwest Georgia, people even travel from out of state to see it. And they come, they say, because they have trouble telling it from the real thing. In fact, Rudolph, is that you? Okay, Rudolph, get your rest. You'll need it tonight. Greg Lloyd, News Center 10, Valdosta. Good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Lloyd. It's 46 degrees and overcast in Tallahassee. Your exclusive 6-day forecast in just a moment. But first, 5 teens are arrested after a man is found murdered in his car. It happened Friday night in Wakulla County near Medart. Investigators say Corey Ingram's body was filled with bullets. They say it may have been a drug deal gone bad. Police arrested Thomas Rozier Jr. and Robert Lattimore. They're both from Carabel. 3 juveniles are also behind bars. 2 of them are 17. No word at this hour on the age of the 3rd suspect. It took him 3 hours, and now he's accused of robbing 2 different stores. Michael Thomas is charged with 2 counts of attempted robbery at both the Tallahassee RV Center and Domino's Pizza on West Tennessee Street. He's not yet been charged for a robbery at a Swanee Swifty on that same road. Deputies say the clerk at the Swanee Swifty knows Thomas by name. Defendants in the Publix lawsuit may not be seeing any of that $81 million anytime soon. About 150,000 women could share in this settlement over gender bias. Attorneys are saying it will take about a year and a half to collect. Current female workers will get $70 for every year they've worked at Publix since 1986. Now that adds up to a maximum of $840 for any one employee. Publix has until February 26 to send a statement to eligible workers for information on their alleged experience with discrimination. Fritztown in Tallahassee's south side may be getting a cleanup if one man has his way. The cleanup proposal uses business incentives to increase growth and revitalization. The incentives include offering license tax exemptions, property tax rebates, and reduced building permit fees. Reduced taxes will hopefully encourage businesses to move to the area. The plan is proposed by Terry Madigan. He's running for the City Commission seat 3 against incumbent Debbie Lightsey and realtor Lenora Dolte. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back at 7:55 with more local news. Good Morning America continues. Have a great day.